This is the Crash MotoGP podcast, episode 20. After a frantic MotoGP race in Aragon, it was Ducati's Pecco Bagnaia who took his maiden win after fending off Marc Marquez in an intense battle over the last few laps. Marquez, for all his might, tried and tried again to get past Bagnaia, but ultimately failed to do so. It wasn't a great day at the office, though, for championship leader Fabio Quartararo. How often do we say that, actually? Not very often at all, who fell back through the order right from the very start. The KTMs enjoyed an upturn in pace at one point, with Brad Binder and Iker Lecuona enjoying the track conditions in the middle stage of the race, both getting past a fledgling Quartararo. Aleix Espargaro put on another strong display in the Aprilia, just missing the podium in fourth, and a great run for Enea Bastianini too in sixth come the checkered flag. Maverick Vinales' first race on the Aprilia saw him come home in 18th place, and we lost Alex Marquez and Jake Dixon early on. Lots to dissect as ever. We'll also take a look at Moto 2 and Moto 3. Keith Huewen, first up, welcome back to the podcast. What a race for MotoGP. That end, those last few laps between Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia, your favourite. What a way for Bagnaia to take his first win in MotoGP.
He's a delightful guy, Pecco, there's no doubt about it. And it was an impeccable performance.
No. Terrible.
It really was. I mean, it was a fantastic performance. I mean, the guy, we know he's fast, we know he's capable, but the way he did it was just fantastic. I mean, the thing for me was the Ducati was carrying good corner speed. It was working really good for him. It was, okay, it's a little bit faster than Honda, but not a lot. I mean, you got Marquez all over you like a bloody mucky raincoat. It's one of them situations where he held his nerve. He looked more like Dovizioso than Dovizioso. I mean, the amount of times they swapped places on the last two laps was just absolutely remarkable. I mean, Marc Marquez isn't quite himself still. There is no doubt about that. But anybody in any doubt about how much he wanted to win that race, blimey. Pecco had to be bang on it everywhere, and he was brilliant. He kept his nerve, he kept his line, he kept cool. Did you see the sheet, Pete? And I know you will have done because you're one of those type of people that is bound to have gone through the after-race sheets, as I have as well. The time, every lap, it was 48.5, 48.5, 48.8, 48.9, 48.5, all the way down the sheet where it counted. I've never seen such consistency. And in a battle royal like that, with Marquez closing him down, Bastianini, you mentioned Bastianini in your build-up there, Harry, an absolutely brilliant ride from him as well. Disappointing Rins in qualifying, winner last time here, obviously, and it fell apart for him. Don't understand it. Mir, despite the fact he was on the podium, still looked pretty devastated in pit lane in Parc Ferme. Not running the whole shot device, 3 kilos worth of wasted effort by the sound of that at the moment. They haven't quite got that where they want it. So he decided not to run it again. Tyres were going to be an issue again with track temperature right up there, 47 degrees or something it was, I think, when they kicked off. That was going to be an issue. Everybody ran that soft tyre, everyone except Zarco. Where was Johann Zarco? Nowhere to be seen. He ran a medium in the back of his. Otherwise, everyone ran exactly the same tyres throughout the entire field. Pretty rare you see that as well. But Aragon gave us what we'd expect from Aragon. It's a brilliant racetrack in a brilliant place, and it's the one that never seems to get the accolades, I don't think, that it really, really should as a track. I mean, I tried to build it up a bit last week when we did this podcast, but it's one of those tracks. It was only 13,500 people trackside. You imagine, you got all that area to yourself if you'd made the effort to go down there and watch a race like that. Great weekend. Great meeting. Off the back of a fantastic weekend anyway. Raducanu is all I can say.
For the non-Brit listeners, that might not go down so well, but for us, I think we all stayed up late to watch the US Open. Absolutely, it has been.
Hey, Raducanu's got a lot of bases covered. She's got the Chinese base covered, she's got the Romanian base covered, and she's got the Brit base covered. So the thing I love about sport is it's not about flag waving and all the rest of it. It's just about a brilliant performance, and she was absolutely outstanding in any nationality's sense of the word. To come through as a qualifier, I don't know about you guys, but Channel 4 actually, when Prime had got that, and this is my thing about motorbike racing. I think the likes of Prime, Netflix, and all the rest of it. I'm heading off in that tangent as I always do, Harry. So bring me back in. But I've always said that it's going to be the Netflix of this world. It's going to be the Prime video of this world that are going to take over some of the sports like motorbikes in the future, is how I see it. And they're going to be the ones that are going to be doshing it out if they feel like for free, like they did with Channel 4 over the weekend, so that we did get those people that haven't got Prime. I'm lucky enough to have it, but anybody that doesn't have Prime could have watched it on Channel 4. Otherwise, we'd have missed a massive piece of sporting history. And that is wrong. And that's where, top sports ought to be able to negotiate those kind of free-to-air deals every now and again, like Dorna do. They put out Silverstone for free. It went out on ITV for free. So MotoGP also recognised the fact that certain cornerstones to sport should be out there for fans to see for free.
Absolutely. And I was one of those 9 million plus viewers that Channel 4 got, which is incredible. Imagine, I think MotoGP and motorsport would be absolutely frothing from the mouth if we could get those numbers. But with Amazon Prime, of course, making this new Drive to Survive style documentary for MotoGP, well, who knows how that could pan out and bring a whole new audience to MotoGP, which is really exciting. But let's get back to the race in action. That's the first tangent of the day. Good stuff. We're only a few minutes in. Pete McLaren, Marc Marquez. We've had a few questions coming on him as well. Really giving it some, especially in those final few laps to try and take the win. And he's been saying it throughout the weekend. Especially in the warm up, I think he didn't go out for the first 5 minutes because he's not wanting to waste too much energy. He's still working within himself each weekend, and he's still got these problems. But a ride like that certainly proved that, are we getting ever closer to the old Marquez, or is this as good as it's ever going to get?
The old Marquez is obviously still there, isn't he? And he's able to break out at certain tracks, Sachsenring obviously being the prime example this year. Now, obviously Aragon was this other anti-clockwise track, so he likes anti-clockwise tracks anyway, but then with this shoulder injury on the right-hand side, it's really sort of exaggerated the difference in his performance at these kind of circuits. So he said, the shoulder's acceptable, but clearly it's not, it's not, it's holding him back still. But on the other hand, if you look at the Honda, you look at as he said, look at the performance of Alex. His brother was on the podium at Aragon last year. Taka was on pole position. Those guys were nowhere near that pace this year. So there's obviously, it's a two-part thing. It's Marc and the bike. They both need to improve. He spoke about this week he's had 3 chassis in the last 4 races, so they're trying so many different parts to improve their situation. As we've seen, some tracks Marc can make the difference, some tracks he can't. This was a track where he could make the difference. The difference in terms of Sachsenring was it's got long straights. So Pecco Bagnaia, as Keith said, his consistency was unbelievable during the race. I mean, Marc, there weren't really passing opportunities. Marc tried to create something, didn't he? There was no mistake by Pecco. It's not like there was, Pecco left the door open and Marc sort of, oh, thank you very much. Marc was just working and trying to rattle him probably, but completely cleanly. There was no contact, unlike in the F1 race, I believe. It was all completely clean and, fair play to Pecco for keeping calm when you've got Marc Marquez launching his Honda past you 7 times in the last 3 laps. It was exceptionally cool and great timing. We're coming up. It's Misano next weekend, which is, 1 year ago, Pecco threw away that he had one hand on the win, didn't he, Keith? And was it a tear off? Who knows? But either way, he was leading comfortably and down he went. He then fell from the lead in Mugello as well this year. So if he'd have gone back to Misano with all of that pressure, Ducati's home race, not having won when you've got Jorge Martin, a rookie who's won for Ducati already this year, Jack has won for Ducati already this year, I think it all would have just been building. And, as Valentino Rossi said this evening, he said, it was the moment to win. Pecco's had the speed for the past few races, and it was the moment to kind of put it all together and make it happen. Rossi was also quite funny. He said he'd been trying to hypnotize Pecco because he said sometimes he makes some strange tyre choices. So all this weekend he's been going hard, soft, meaning hard front, soft rear, which, as Keith has said, everyone went for that. If you didn't go for that, and Zarco was the only guy that didn't, you could have been in big trouble. So Rossi said, even after warm-up this morning, he said to him again, hard, soft, don't go for anything other than that. And, Rossi was extremely proud. It's the second VR46 Academy rider to win in MotoGP after Morbidelli. So it's a big moment for them as well. And as Keith says, Pecco Bagnaia is a really, really nice, likable guy, down to earth, very softly spoken, and great moment for him and Ducati.
Absolutely. Well, let's move down, though, to our third place man as well. Keith, you touched on the Suzuki riders not happy at all, really. I think I've seen tweets from both Joan Mir and Alex Rins following the race in the last couple of hours. Even, Mir not happy with the third place either, thinking, he wanted more from this. What happened to Suzuki this week? And especially Rins, who, might I add, we all had in our podium lineups. So
It's the great thing about MotoGP. Doesn't matter what you think you know nothing in actual fact. Doesn't matter who you are. I mean, I listen to a lot of pundits worrying that we might have chosen a little bit too randomly. But when you listen to all the so-called telly pundits and all the rest of it around the world, they'd all gone for pretty much similar to what we'd gone. Expecting Quartararo to be able to step up. It's not a track he likes, but he was still fast around it. Yamaha, of course, is a lot down on horsepower. Really, it's one of those situations where he just couldn't make that work. I mean, he was the first Yamaha in 8th place when you consider that we got, 4 different manufacturers in the first 4 places. Aprilia, of course, Aleix Espargaro again was right there with the Aprilia. Maverick Vinales out on the Aprilia, looking like he was having a good ride as well. Can't remember. I'll have to look at my sheet. Did he actually beat Valentino in the end? He did beat Valentino. Valentino finished, he just finished in front of his brother, didn't he? So Valentino was last for a long time, and then he just managed to get hold of Marini, which, don't know. Yamaha really are in trouble at the moment. It was very interesting to hear Jorge Lorenzo talking. He was talking to everybody this weekend. He was Mr. Relax. He's got a bit more bark on him now. He looks a little bit chubbier, perhaps, just like a relaxed man should do, not trying to get down to the last, ounce or gram in your case, because you guys are much younger than me, but I still work in ounces. So he's down to his last. He's looking really well, Jorge. And when he's spoken to everybody this weekend, the most chilled out man in the paddock. And he said, I miss certain aspects of my life. Of course I do. I miss the winning. I miss the team. I miss, the intensity of it all. And then again, he said, I like standing here knowing I've got no stress. I don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to get hurt. I've not got any of those things that worry me through my career. And I absolutely understand what he's talking about. I mean, it's the absolute second by second dedication to go fast. And that's what it takes to be in that position. And Jorge has become quite eloquent as well over that side of things. He's been able to relay that to you in a way that anybody can understand how much he had to put in to be a 5 times world champion. He still likes to tell you he's been a 5 times world champion about every other sentence, which amuses the hell out of everybody. But he has been a 5 times world champion, and a bloody good one in a hard time as well. So again, looking at the Yamaha side of things, he touched on what's going on there. I think everybody's looking forward to 2022. Really, they're just about hanging on there with that inline across the frame bike. Was he going to get on with the V4 situation for Maverick Vinales? I think he did get on with it really well. There were certain areas of riding aspect that he didn't make work for him. Strangely enough, it was the last sector here, which is mostly a straight, apart from that sort of wonderful double apex left-hander off the end of it. But he was losing loads of time through technique in a couple of places. Mate, he's going to get that. It's going to come to him really, really quick. He's a great rider, Maverick Vinales. So I think it was a pretty fair opener for him. Anybody who asks why is he riding it this year, why don't he do loads of this is great. Race testing is the best kind of testing. Get out there and ride the thing in the last part of the year. Brilliant.
I think just to fill in on a few more things there, Fabio, by the sound of it, he had a rear tyre problem. So this is, again, it sounds like similar to Mir. Certainly Bagnaia at Silverstone. Bagnaia said at the start of this weekend that Michelin had kind of said that confirmed that there was some sort of performance issue with his rear tyres. So we've been hearing this, haven't we, quite a lot this year, of people using the same tyres and not getting the performance from them. And that's what Fabio said was the case for his race. He said he'd used the tyre with 26 laps in warm-up. The race is 23 laps, and he felt great. But he said right from the start, he just didn't have the same performance. So he didn't want to put it all down to the tyre. He's being very careful, very diplomatic, but he did make clear that the rear tyre didn't feel as it had done all of the weekend up till the race.
Funny that you should say that, though, because there were a lot of people that were on the floor this weekend. And Aragon is one of them places that changes from day to day. The opener of the day, it was completely covered in fog. which you get at Aragon. The difference in ground temperature compared with the air temperature that's coming in, massive amount of fog. And you get that quite often at Aragon. Now, that makes a difference. The track temp, even when the sun's coming up and it's getting to 25, 30 degrees or whatever it might be, an ambient temperature, the ground temperature's still coming up. It looked greasy in places. It didn't look like as grippy. It's not a high grip track anyway. And it looked quite greasy. And the amount of crashes that we've had over the course of this weekend, I mean, Moto 2, how many did we have? 11 down in Moto 2. There were a lot of people that were going through, across the gravel traps this weekend.
I think it's quite one of the oldest asphalts. I think it's 11 years. Someone said it's been around, and quite harsh weather conditions there. And the fact that everyone went with the soft rear tyre tells you that they were all searching for grip, even though it was a lot hotter than last year. So yeah, absolutely, the grip levels were definitely low.
Now, I want to talk about Iker Lecuona very briefly, because I really like the guy. Out of all the riders, I've just found a little bit of an attachment to Lecuona, and I feel really bad for him because, youngest rider in the field, 21 years old, hasn't had the longest of careers since he first started riding on bikes. And he was looking really good this afternoon, or as we record this on Sunday afternoon in Aragon, looking up for a top 8 position. And then he, made a mistake, ran wide, lost a few positions, couldn't quite recover him. Yes, he made the mistake, but the fact that he's putting in some good performances at the moment, as of right now, he doesn't have a ride for next year, when others, perhaps, you look at Darren Binder, even Jake Dixon are being considered more than he is. After today, and also the last couple of rounds, I find that difficult to comprehend that Lecuona is not also being considered and finds himself having to look at World Superbikes or somewhere else.
Sometimes these things happen. It's a bit of an anomaly sometimes that management haven't really got him in line, got the chess pieces all moving around in the paddock quite as neatly as they would like to do. And I think Iker Lecuona, like you say, 21 years old, I know it's his second year now, isn't it? You need 3 years, in my view, really coming through in this situation. You need that nurturing over a period of time. And it's going to be a shame to see him shoved out the back of the paddock when he is riding really, really well. And maybe he just needed that little bit more time to get to where he needed to get to. And that can be a communication situation with the team. He's not quite, got it all in line back in the team. Perhaps they're working their way through his little nuances that he wants on the bike or how he wants the bike to be, and they're working towards that. But it's happened before. And you mentioned Jake Dixon. Poor old Jake, he's crashed out, 3 minutes in. It's a disaster, really, because he needed to show another good performance. I mean, the old balance has been going. Darren Binder, Jake Dixon, Darren Binder for this Petronas ride. And I thought Jake had just about grabbed the initiative on that one after his Silverstone ride. But now there wasn't he didn't underline it in Aragon like he would have really wanted to have nailed it down. And I think now, Binder, perhaps they're level pegging again, and it's going to be an argument behind the scenes, and it's almost going to be an opinion rather than an actual fact-based type decision, perhaps. We'll see.
Yeah, I think it sounds like I did ask him this evening as he made a decision on his future, and he knows where he's going next year. And as you say, it sounds very much like it'll be World Superbike with Honda. Now, the good, he said he's not allowed to say yet, but that's what will come out, I think, in the next week or so. I guess from his career point of view, the good news for him is that there's probably something in the contract whereby if he does a really good job for Honda in Superbike, there could be a path back to MotoGP in future. But as you say, it is a shame to lose a rider that's so young from the paddock. On the other hand, 2 years on the bike, and you've got, as we've said, you've got this talent coming up with KTM. They need to put them, if they don't put them on the bike, they lose them. So, they had to lose somebody, and sadly they've taken a decision that they want to go with Remy and Raul, and even if that means letting both Lecuona and Petrucci, who sounds like he's going to the Dakar, let them go.
Dakar. That sounds more like a penance than an actual career move. I got to say, the Dakar would just be, it would be my worst nightmare. I don't know about anything else. I mean, maybe in one of them dirty, great big trucks, a service vehicle or something, that'd be quite good fun. But I'm not sure I'd want to do it in a car, or absolutely not on a motorcycle. I mean, the opportunity for disaster is just too great for me. I mean, but he seems quite I don't know whether resolved, I think, is probably the word I'd look at, rather than, he seems reasonably enthusiastic for a new challenge, but a challenge like that, massive. All you can do is wish him well and injury-free.
Absolutely. Well, they are both departing KTM Tech 3 team at the end of the season, but a strong run there from Huewen, almost finished 11th in the end, and Petrucci down in 15th. And we also did briefly touch as well on Enea Bastianini. Let's talk about him a little bit more. 6th place. I think I'm right in saying that is his best result so far in MotoGP. So a really good run for the Italian on the Ducati.
And he looked real good on it, didn't he? I mean, I have to say, the oldest bike out there, and he looked very, very good on it. He was putting manoeuvres in, in places that you wouldn't have expected him to. He was growing in stature as every lap went by. So very impressive, Enea Bastianini. Can't wait to see how he progresses when we get to Misano. We got a bit of a left-hand track this time. We've got a right-hand track coming up with a couple of scary corners in it for Misano. So, and another track that can be either slippy or whatever it feels like, depending on the day. So we'll wait and see what kind of Misano we've got when we get there. But it's going to be an exciting race weekend. And like you've already said, Pecco Bagnaia, race winner this week, got that monkey off his back. Now, it's going to be a hell of a Misano. I can't wait.
Absolutely. Well, let's just bring you up to speed on how the championship points lie as well at the end of Aragon. Fabio Quartararo, 214 points now ahead of Pecco Bagnaia, who's got up to second. 53-point lead for Quartararo currently. Mir in third with 157. Zarco, 137, down to fourth, just in front of Jack Miller. And actually, it's probably worth touching just before we do move on to Moto2, because we will swing back around as ever to MotoGP once we've done it. But touching on the other Ducati riders, particularly, Miller looked like he was in for a podium, but again, a mistake cost him that. And then on the Pramac Ducati, Zarco, what happened?